everybody. Welcome to another edition of Can't Wait. Sounds terrible. That's Rachel. That's Natalie. No, not that Natalie. Our Natalie. Producer Grace is behind the glass, and I'm Dennis. Eleni is working at the dunking booth at the State Fair, and Patrick is at Top Golf in Naperville. So this is the core team today. We could be sponsored by corndogs, the meal on a stick that says, I've given up. Our theme today, however, is what had happened was. But first, Rachel, was I too tough on the corndogs there? I mean, you're a Springfield State Fair veteran.
Depends on the corn dog. There's some really tasty corn dogs out there. There's some really bad corn dogs. So I don't think we should put them all in the same boat.
I've yet to try a good corn dog, but I'm probably not in the demo. Anyway, something I learned when I was a young politically appointed hack, a certain chief of staff told me, if you're explaining, you're losing. And there is a lot of explaining going on. Let's start in Springfield. The Chicago Tribune is staying on the House Democrat caucus sexual harassment scandal over the past weekend. Ran a full-page editorial in their opinion section. It said, in Springfield, there's a time-honored way to deal with the crisis and give the impression that lawmakers are doing something without their actually having to do anything at all. Form a working group. That way you can buy some time until hopefully everybody moves on. And it goes on to say that perhaps that's what the Speaker of the House was hoping with the sexual harassment scandal, but it does not seem to be the case, in part because the Tribune and Capital Facts won't move on, and some other media outlets. The most recent iteration, the Tribune said, is their new Culture and Accountability Working Group. And as the Tribune's words, not mine, the wheels are already falling off. The Tribune went on to point out that 2 lawmakers had misgivings about serving in the working group. Even though it was supposed to be confidential, the Speaker's friend and PR advisor leaked the names. Democratic Representative Greg Johnson of Moline told Capital News Illinois he was uncomfortable since a number of the members have already defended the Speaker publicly. And we've previously talked about the fact that Democratic State Representative Kelly Cassidy of Chicago said her questions were not being answered, so she declined participating. And then the Speaker told Capital News Illinois last week that one of his top priorities is centralizing human resource operations in the House. Currently, district staffers report HR concerns like sexual harassment to the state rep that employs them. So it's not going away, and the time-honored tradition of a working group in Springfield does not seem to be working very well. Rachel, what's your observation?
I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head that the time-honored tradition is to create a group that will meet and that will appear to be doing something and then often do absolutely nothing. You know, I think we touched on this last week, that if it's a sincere effort, if they're actually going to come out of this with some real recommendations for some change, then do it. But I think Springfield has given everybody every reason to believe that this will be just window dressing and nothing real will come out of it.
Natalie, with the state fair going on, maybe people will be focused on the better butter cow instead of this scandal.
I mean, I do love a good Vose's corn dog. It's usually one of my top stops, but definitely not your demographic. Yeah, I mean, well, the timing of all this we talked about, in a previous session, is to some degree helpful for Speaker Welch in terms of making this go away or making it less bad. Had this happened, in the middle of May, as the legislature is barreling towards the end of session and trying to get a budget done, talk about a major distraction when you have all the members gathered and all the ecosystem of Springfield under the dome. People talk and things can maybe have been a little bit more escalated. But you keep having this steady drumbeat and all of these, like, to use your phrase, the wheels coming off with members, quitting before they've even started. And, we had the National Conference of State Legislatures in town in Chicago a couple weeks ago. Now you've got the state fair, you've got Democrat Day. And so there's all these continual awkward moments for the speaker and all the other electeds standing with him on the podium. The governor keeps getting asked about this. I think he even went so far as to say, like, we don't need another working group. Let's fast track it. Like, it's definitely a tactic. It's a tactic we've used in some of our engagements. Sometimes it's helpful to formulate an official body so that you can point to action being taken. As you said, if you're explaining you're losing, instead of just saying, oh, well, this is all the things, like, we've formed this group. These are the discussions that have been had. These are the decisions and actions that can come out of it. It can be a helpful tool. But in this case, the way that they've gone about it, the leaking of the names and, questions about what this is really going to do, have only contributed to the haziness of this situation.
It's been hard to watch. I'm sure even harder if you are in the speaker's office. By the way, Capitol Facts publisher Rich Miller, in his weekly Sun-Times column, suggested term limits for the legislative leaders. What do we think of that, Rachel?
I think that is where term limits make the most sense. Absolutely. I think term limits is a conversation that should be had in general, but leaders who hold on to power for too long get too stuck on holding on to power and not thinking about the people that they're trying to serve. I'm all for it.
Natalie, 40 years might have been too long.
There is an opportunity to lose sight of the goal and purpose after 4 decades, for sure. I think burnout can be a real factor.
In the past, there were a number of speakers that had terms of only a few years before Speaker Madigan came along, and that was Rich's point was, quote, I'm not advocating here for reducing the term limits to 6 years or whatever, but what I am saying is that Illinois government will not crash and burn if Speaker Welch and Senate President Harman don't serve their full 5 2-year General Assemblies as their chamber's leaders. Anyway, thoughts and prayers. Lest we think that the explaining and the finger pointing is limited to the General Assembly, we have some executive office holders finger pointing. Another Tribune story. This was a team of Tribune reporters doing an investigative piece a few days ago on the funeral home debacle on the south side of Chicago. The story said after city and state officials discovered 56 decomposing bodies in a Chicago funeral home, Governor J.B. Pritzker defended the state's response to complaints against the husband and wife in charge of the facility. Pritzker's message, delivered during a downstate event, was simple. State government did its job. A Tribune investigation, however, I'm reading from the Tribune, found regulatory shortcomings that allowed those apparently bad actors to persist, with the state failing to shut down Clark and Joanna Morgan's businesses or take their licenses, even after they were found to have mishandled human remains at their South Suburban facility, Heights Crematory. So, a lot of finger pointing going on. The governor sort of wants to point the finger at the comptroller's office, but the comptroller is a good Democrat, Susana Mendoza. She's running for mayor. He's running for president. Oh, wait, they still have to get reelected. Governor to run for president. We've covered that. So this is what happens when you have single party rule of the state. It's hard to wriggle out of these problems, Rachel.
I wish this was a more isolated issue. I mean, this isn't the first time in the last few years we've seen a story like that. There was a big story like this out of Springfield a few years ago too, and I know legislators down there have proposed legislation to try and tackle it. I think, the regulations are there. I guess they've been enforced. I've seen legislation like trying to press like criminal charges in situations like this for desecrating a body, right? Stuff like that. I don't know if that stops people from doing this, but I we got to get our hands around it because it's awful. Imagine being the family members of those people and finding out that that's what happened to your loved one.
In fact, Natalie, to Rachel's point, the Chicago Sun-Times has a long piece that recounts that this kind of mess happens every 10 to 15 years, and facts seem to suggest that state reforms have made oversight of the industry even more confusing. Sun-Times writes, the gruesome discovery of unrefrigerated decomposing bodies. Producer Grace, that should really help us trend on the YouTube. Unrefrigerated decomposing bodies at a South Deering funeral home 2 weeks ago exposed the dearth of oversight over Illinois funeral home industry. Illinois is one of the mere handful of states that, absent complaints, do not conduct regular inspections of funeral homes. Illinois is also the only state that does not have a board or agency monitoring licensed funeral homes. And a recently signed law grants the state comptroller's office more regulatory powers over cemeteries and crematories, but that purview doesn't extend to funeral homes. The Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation regulates funeral director and embalmer licenses. A law professor from Wake Forest University says that kind of fragmentation cannot help this situation. And there's a state rep, Democrat from Villa Park, Diane Blair Sherlock, who is trying to create a unified board, which she would like to try to bring some reform here. But she said she's not sure if the comptroller or the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation have the resources to become the state's one-stop shop for funeral industry oversight to stop decomposing remains. Producer Grace. Sometimes we want to give it to a department and the department says we're not equipped for that. I believe we will be able to do something early next year. It goes on and on. By the way, Comptroller Mendoza trying to make sure that she can check any criticism that might come from any of her fellow Democrats, says through a spokesperson, Comptroller Mendoza believes these people belong in jail. So, tough on crime, tough on stacking up decomposing remains. Natalie.
It has never made sense to me that the comptroller's office has the purview over cemeteries and crematories. I get it, it's
Point.
related to like the funds that you pay, but I remember in the AG's office, we had a question about, I think there was a situation with tombstones or something that had been piling up behind
Sheriff Dart. Yeah, Sheriff Dart found some almost 20 years ago.
Had to deal with
been a
that.
hot
That was a
mess.
fun one.
Yep.
Probably alongside some sort of scandal over on workers' comp. That was always a hot hitting mess in my day. It's never made sense. And this is the definition of a hot mess. Like of states, Illinois being known for one of the states, with excessive regulation and taxation, and there's this gaping hole to deal with, end of life needs and supports. Everybody seems to be scratching their heads. And to your point, Rachel, this has been an issue continually. Like, why haven't we done something about it? And why is there so much confusion around it now? Like, nobody wants to deal with it. It's an election year. It's a difficult topic. It is a hot mess. So
it's almost like when you have excessive regulations under multiple agencies and no one knows who's actually in charge of things, it makes it harder to actually get to the root of the problem.
It's creating the stasis. There's a gaping hole, and nobody knows how to fill it. Oh, and also the fact that the state has no resources. We're talking about more funding for CPS or creating this new agency. Like, it's all upside down.
Sounds like they need a working group.
Maybe a task
More
force.
bad news. Task force and a working group. There's more bad news. Rachel, the Sun-Times reported on this, and we recently noted that the Republican nominee for governor, Darren Bailey, as of the last public reporting of donations, had $120,000 cash on hand to campaign against billionaire Governor J.B. Pritzker. Well, make that $126,900. Rockford, the Sun-Times wrote, Darren Bailey took campaign money from sex offender who's now a pastor. Rockford resident Victor D. Barr was convicted of aggravated criminal sex abuse in the early 2000s for, this is the Sun-Times words, not mine, quote, having sex with a girl who attended the public high school where he taught math. He was required to register as a sex offender with his name, photo, and address displayed on a publicly accessible Illinois State Police database for the rest of his life. Barr's name is now surfacing on a different list of campaign contributions to Darren Bailey. Barr and his household made 2 contributions this year to the Bailey campaign, one for $700 in a donation dated in April and another for $400 in a donation dated in June, according to the Illinois State Board of Elections. The Sun-Times reports a spokesperson for Bailey says of Barr, we did not know his background. We're going to find a charity and donate it. So he's down a little bit of cash, but no working group required. Natalie, 2 political campaign firms, also in the Sun-Times, with close ties to men with public corruption convictions have gotten business in recent years in Chicago and statewide political races, including the current hotly contested race for Chicago School Board president and more than $1.5 million earned by Governor J.B. Pritzker's gubernatorial campaigns, according to records. It's a long, convoluted story. One of the 2 convicted felons convicted of corruption is former Chicago alderman, kind of redundant, Ike Carruthers, who received money from CTU. He went earlier, about 10 or so years ago, to university. He has gotten paid by both CTU and the governor, and he's reformed himself and he's found meaningful work. So I think we should get off his case. However, former Alderman Carruthers has a distinction, Natalie, in that he followed in his father's footsteps. Alderman William Carruthers also went to prison in a political corruption scandal. So a lot of good stuff going on. Represent. Take some pride.
It's a long list of alumni.
Make good choices, kids. Don't run for city council or really governor. Choose a life that doesn't take you into a life of crime. All right, that sounds terrible. And it's time, Producer Grace, for Sounds Terrible. Let's hear those sad trombones. Can't get enough of those sad trombones. All right, Natalie, lead us off with terribleness. And you shared, coming back from your vacay, that you were chock full of terribleness.
It's back to school season. It's a bittersweet time. Get the kids back into a regular routine. But summer's been a great time. But there are so many emails. I am struggling to keep up. Like urgent demands for filling out forms for t-shirt sizes for the field trip in September, which is weeks away. I actually added up, I pulled all of the emails. We got 2 different schools we're dealing with now. I copy and pasted all of the like, here's what you have to do, and here's the website or the app where you find the action that you have to take, and pasted it into a document. In Charlie's, I did 2 documents, one for each kid. Charlie's alone, 7 pages long, 1,600 words. That's just the actual thing. So there's all the like greetings and closing remarks, and then there's the follow-up email of, oh, we forgot to attach the document. Like, it's just, I don't know how anybody's keeping up with this, especially working parents. Like, it's total insanity. I want to be like, help me help you. Like, I will pro bono come in and be like, okay, we can just pull all this together in one document, send it out one time, and that's it. And then the teachers all complain, like when the parents get it wrong. 7 pages.
Sounds like either Chat GPT made it worse, or maybe Chat GPT could make it better or make it even more comical. It sounds terrible. How these kids don't come with instruction booklets for the first several years, and they get to school, Rachel, and they need a lot of instructions. I don't know how.
I mean, it would be
parents do
different if it was one book. I think the problem is it's 7 books. You have to synthesize and create your own book like Natalie did.
And the kids are like, whatever, I'm just showing up. Like, they don't care. I was like labeling
They'll
school
figure it
supplies
out.
last night with the school supplied label. Like, you have to do it exactly how they want it. Like, sure, the pencil with Charlie's name on it is going to be returned to him.
All right, Rachel, what's terrible
Sure.
in your neck of the woods?
So I'm going to give a terrible update to sounds terrible from earlier this summer. I think we've all seen all summer headlines about a certain gastrointestinal ailment going across the country. And I just wanted to share a headline from yesterday on this to make sure that no one feels comfortable that it's getting better. Cyclospora outbreak grows with no confirmed sources. FDA. So nothing's
That
getting better. People
that
across
is
the country are still being sickened. I've never wanted a salad with iceberg lettuce more in my life. I was in my hometown over the weekend. We ordered pizza from our local pizza joint. They always have this great salad. And when I called to order the pizza, I said, hey, can you tell me, do you chop your own lettuce or do you buy pre-chopped lettuce? And I had to say, okay, then no, if you pre-chop lettuce, I don't want a salad. And it was a bummer because I'm not there that often. It's a delicious salad. It pairs really nicely with the pizza I grew up on. But I had to take that particular joy away from myself over the weekend. I would like for them to get to the bottom of this. Great example of government inefficiency or whatever, just really impacting everyone's lives. So let's get this terrible cyclospora out of our collective vocabulary, please.
wait
I
till Natalie's school
used
principal opines on
vegetables
that.
and only corn dogs.
Right. Corn dogs only. And wait till Natalie's school principal gets a hold of that information.
Corn dogs
It'll
are
be
definitely the solution.
Well, I'm moving out of explosive diarrhea and explosive verbal diarrhea of principal emails. It's been an epic Cubs Sox series still going on as we record this illustrious video podcast. And it's all part of a stressful end to the baseball season. Both teams are, as we speak, poised for playoff runs. Some have even raised the prospect of the Cubs versus the Sox in the World Series. The city will not be able to take it. And the bleachers at Wrigley definitely won't be able to take it. As strong as the Cubs players have looked, the fans in the stands, well, let's just say they should rename a certain kind of shirt the Cubs beater. There's been a video that you've all seen. I'm really worried that producer Grace will include this because it's just not family friendly. And anyway, I don't know if we can replay it, Producer Grace, but it's pretty stereotypical because you have a jacked, probably inebriated Sox fan in a sleeveless t-shirt that may be renamed, kicking the cotton candy out of a, shall we say, softer, less muscled, probably also inebriated Cubs fan in the bleachers. The Cubs win on the field. The Sox win the fight in the bleachers. It sounds terrible. Can't we all get along? Come on, it's baseball, the American pastime. And I don't know. Maybe they need, Producer Grace, you could end with a more instructional video of, you know, how they taught to fight. And what's the movie with Vote for Pedro?
Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon, yeah. Napoleon Dynamite.
Let me see what your best move is.
He's got some good fight instructions for Cubs fans. Anyway, do better, Cubs fans. Keep your cool, Sox fans. Hang on to your T-shirts. It's going to be a stressful end of the season. And if that isn't terrible enough, we're going to be tracking more terrible stuff over the next weeks. For Natalie, our Natalie, and Rachel, and Producer Grace, and Eleni and Patrick somewhere, we thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.